Chapter 6, Tokyo Part 3. Blood was splattered everywhere, a gruesome testament to the violent act that had just occurred. Jason, overwhelmed by shock and loss of blood, kept slipping in and out of consciousness, his body unable to cope with the trauma. As they trembled in fear, the boss approached Chris with a chilling calmness. He leaned in close, his voice a menacing whisper. "You have 1 week, Chris," he said, his voice cold and menacing. "Get me my money, or else." The threat hung heavy in the air, a sinister promise of more violence. As he spoke, he deftly slipped a card into Chris's pocket. "You'll find all the details here." With a dismissive gesture, the boss's henchmen grabbed Chris and the barely conscious Jason, dragging them unceremoniously to the club's exit. Jason's severed hand was thrown along with them, a brutal reminder of the boss's cruelty. The club's door slammed shut behind them, echoing through the loud street as they lay there in shock and disbelief. The reality of their situation sinking in under the cold, uncaring gaze of the night sky. His mind racing with panic, Chris knew they needed to get to a hospital fast. Jason was barely conscious, his condition worsening by the minute. With great effort, Chris helped Jason to his feet, supporting his friend's weight as best he could. He knew they couldn't waste any time. Tearing a piece of his shirt off and wrapping the exposed bone on Jason's arm tightly. Glancing around, he spotted a nearby convenience store and made a beeline for it, half dragging, half carrying Jason. Once inside the store, Chris hurriedly grabbed a bag of ice, dumping Jason's severed hand into it to preserve it as best as he could. The store clerk looked on in shock, but Chris had no time to explain. He rushed back out onto the street, desperately looking for a taxi. His luck turned when he finally flagged down a cab. With a mix of hand gestures and urgent pleas, Chris managed to convey the emergency to the driver, who quickly understood the gravity of the situation. They were soon speeding through the streets towards the nearest hospital, every second feeling like an eternity. Chris held the bag of ice tightly, Jason's life hanging in the balance, as the taxi weaved through the traffic. The city's bright lights blurred past them, starkly contrasting the dire urgency inside the cab. Chris supported Jason's weight as they made their way through the emergency doors. He frantically explained the situation to the hospital staff, his voice laced with panic and urgency. The medical team quickly took over, rushing Jason into surgery and leaving Chris alone in the waiting area, his mind racing with worry. Feeling a sense of dread, Chris knew he had to inform the others, especially Jason's brother, Mario. He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking, and dialed Mario's number. At that moment, Mario was enjoying a serene hot air balloon ride with Antarial, oblivious to the chaos unfolding. "Man, I messed up. I messed up bad," Chris stammered immediately after Mario answered. "What's going on, Chris? Is everything okay?" Mario asked, his voice laced with concern. "Jason's in surgery right now." Initially thinking it was a bad joke, Mario responded, "Cut the crap, Chris. What's happening?" Chris's following words were heavy with sincerity. "I'm not joking, Mario. It's serious." Fury and disbelief washed over Mario in an instant. "What the hell did you do?" "Chris!" he roared into the phone. Antarial glanced at him, her face concerned at the sudden change in his demeanor. Chris's voice trembled in the hospital waiting area as he spoke to an angry Mario. "I can't tell you everything over the phone. Just get here as fast as you can. He's lost a lot of blood. I'll send you the location," he said urgently. Chris ended the call without waiting for a response, his heart pounding in his chest. Still in disbelief and shock, Chris took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He knew he had to alert the rest of their friends about Jason's critical condition. One by one, he sent out messages detailing the hospital's location and urging them to come quickly. With each message sent, the gravity of the situation weighed heavier on him. He was responsible for bringing his friends into this nightmare, and now he had to face the consequences. An hour after the harrowing incident, Tara and Michelle arrived at the hospital, fresh from their private kabuki theater performance. They found Chris in the waiting area, his expression a mix of guilt and anxiety. "Is he okay?" "What happened, Chris?" they asked, concern etched on their faces. Chris, avoiding eye contact, replied evasively, "It's complicated. It's not easy to explain." Another 30 minutes passed before Kesey and Ladarius, still dressed in horseback riding attire, entered the hospital. Spotting Chris, they approached him, their faces filled with worry. "Chris, what's going on? Why are we here?" they pressed. Chris shuffled uncomfortably, responding vaguely. "It's about Jason. I can't get into it right now." He was struggling to provide answers. Soon after, Kim and Emmanuel arrived. Their faces mirrored the confusion and concern of the others. "Chris, tell us what happened," Emmanuel demanded, his voice firm. Again, Chris dodged the question. "It's not something I can talk about right now. Just wait, please," he pleaded, his voice barely above a whisper. 15 minutes later, Alex and Olivia, who had been on a private art gallery tour, showed up. As they joined the group, the tension in the air was palpable. "Chris, we need to know what's happening," Olivia insisted. "I'm sorry. I can't explain it right now," he muttered, leaving everyone anxious as they waited for more news. 10 minutes later, the tense silence of the waiting area was shattered by heavy footsteps and an angry voice echoing down the hallway. Mario, his voice booming with rage, directed squarely at Chris. "What the hell did you do to my brother, Chris?" Anterio followed close behind, her voice laced with panic, pleading desperately. "Don't kill him, Mario. Don't kill him." Tara, Michelle, and the rest of the group quickly moved to hold Mario back, trying to prevent the situation from escalating further. 10 minutes of tense efforts finally calmed Mario down. The group gathered around and was still in the dark about the exact details of what had transpired. Just as Chris was about to speak, a doctor approached the group, his expression serious. "Are you here for Jason?" he asked. Upon receiving nods from the group, he continued, "He's going to make it, but I'm sorry, we couldn't reattach his hand." The group stood in stunned silence, processing the doctor's words. Then, almost in unison, they turned to Chris. "Chris, what the hell happened?" they demanded, their voices rising in a chorus of confusion and anger. Gathering his courage, Chris faced the group, his voice heavy with guilt. "I have to tell you all something," he began hesitantly. "I've been caught up in gambling, and I racked up a huge debt. I was supposed to pay it off, but I forgot." He paused, taking a deep breath as he saw the shock and disbelief in his friend's eyes. "The people I owe money to. They found out I was here in Tokyo, and since I was late on my payment, they expected me to pay them back with interest." His voice faltered as he continued. They took their anger out on Jason instead of me. I had no idea they would do something like this. I never wanted any of you to get hurt." As the weight of Chris's confession sank in, Mario's simmering anger boiled over. In a sudden burst of fury, he grabbed his phone and with a forceful throw, aimed it at Chris. However, the phone missed its target, instead crashing against the hard hospital wall. The screen shattered upon impact, the sound echoing sharply in the tense waiting room. Following the phone-throwing incident, a heavy silence fell over the group. The tension in the air was palpable. They found seats in the hospital waiting room, instinctively dividing themselves into smaller groups, with a noticeable distance between Mario and Chris. Mario sat in one corner of the room, his anger still evident in his clenched fists and tight jaw. He kept his distance from Chris, his emotions a mix of rage and sorrow. Every so often, his gaze would drift toward Chris with an expression that conveyed his feelings of betrayal and disappointment. On the other hand, Chris sat isolated on the opposite side of the room, his posture deflated, embodying a picture of guilt and regret. He avoided making eye contact with anyone, especially Mario, fully aware of the pain and chaos his actions had caused. The doctor re-emerged into the waiting room, drawing the group's attention. He addressed them with a calm but firm tone. "Jason is stable now, but he'll need a few days to recover from the surgery," he explained. "At this point, it's best for you all to go home and rest. He's in good hands, and we'll take care of him here." After hearing the doctor's update, the group, visibly drained from the day's emotional turmoil and the late hour, collectively decided to heed the doctor's advice. They quietly gathered their belongings, their movements slow and heavy with the weight of the day's events. They returned to their respective accommodations. By the time they arrived and settled in, it was the early hours of the morning. The exhaustion of the day finally took its toll, and one by one, they succumbed to a restless sleep, haunted by the events surrounding Jason's injury and the looming threat posed by Chris's debt. It wasn't until about 2 p.m. when they began to stir, each facing the new day with a heavy heart and a mind full of apprehension about what the future might hold in the wake of the traumatic events. In a tranquil moment away from recent upheavals, Alex faced Olivia with a subtle smile. "I've got some news," he started, his tone mixing pride and gratitude. The paperwork for the mortuary is finalized. His smile grew as he regarded Olivia. And I couldn't have done it without you, my amazing partner, he continued with heartfelt appreciation. Your support has been the cornerstone of this venture. Olivia beamed back, her eyes reflecting a shared vision. I'm thrilled to be part of this with you, Alex. It's more than a business. It's a venture close to our hearts, she said passionately. We're going to create a place that truly honors and respects those no longer with us. Alex nodded in agreement, then added thoughtfully, we still need to decide on a name. Olivia paused for a moment, deep in thought. I have a few ideas in mind. We should pick something that resonates with the serene and respectful atmosphere we want to create, she suggested. Then, with a playful yet exasperated chuckle, she added, Oh, and by the way, your friends are crazy. In their room, Ladarius turned to Kesey with a look of determination in his eyes. You know, when we get back to the States, I'll be thinking about starting something of my own, he began, his voice filled with a newfound purpose. A private security firm. With everything that's been happening lately, it just seems like the right move. Kesey listened intently, her expression showing support and interest. That sounds like a great idea, she responded encouragingly. You've always had a knack for security and strategy. It could be a huge success. Ladarius nodded, his thoughts already racing with plans and possibilities. Yeah, I've been doing some research, and I think we could make a difference with the right team and resources. Plus, it's something I'm passionate about. In the solitude of his hotel room, Chris sat with the weight of the day's events pressing heavily on him. The silence around him was a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within. With a deep, resigned breath, he reached into his pocket, retrieving the card discreetly placed there earlier. The instructions were straightforward, yet following through felt like cementing a pact with his fear and desperation. It outlined a specific account number, a name, and a deadline. As he hit the final confirm button, a wave of relief washed over him. But the shadows of his choices lingered, a stark reminder of the price of his actions and the fragile hope that this might end the nightmare. After the unsettling events at the hospital, the rest of the group agreed to meet downstairs in the hotel lobby, a neutral space to share their thoughts and feelings about what had transpired. Each person arrived with a heavy heart, still processing the shock of Jason's injury and the revelation of Chris's gambling debts. As the group settled into their quiet corner of the hotel lobby, a palpable tension hung in the air, mixed with the need to understand every detail of what had happened. Finally, someone broke the silence with a question that had been on everyone's mind, albeit a bit awkward to ask. Does anyone know which hand got cut off? I think it's his left hand, says Kim. Wanting to lighten the mood just a tad during their heavy conversation, Alex quipped, Well, look on the bright side. At least he's all right now. The gentle and carefully timed joke drew a few strained smiles from the group, providing a brief, much-needed respite from the seriousness of their situation. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, their bond could still find a way to bring some light. In their sad reflections, Olivia, sensing the collective need for a reprieve from the day's stress, made a suggestion. Why don't we go to a tea ceremony? She proposed. It might help calm our nerves down for the night. Her idea was met with nods of approval from around the group. The traditional and serene tea ceremony ritual seemed like the perfect counterpoint to the chaos and tension they had all been enduring. It was an opportunity to immerse themselves in a peaceful, grounding experience that promised a momentary escape from their worries. With a collective sense of agreement, they decided to leave the hotel and go to a nearby place known for its authentic tea ceremony services. The prospect of participating in this tranquil Japanese tradition brought a sense of hopeful anticipation to the group, offering them a chance to unwind and reconnect in a calming environment. Upon arriving at the tea ceremony venue, the group was ushered into a serene space where they were invited to sit in a circle on traditional tatami mats. The atmosphere was imbued with a quiet tranquility, the gentle sound of water and the subtle scent of incense enhancing the calming effect. They began sipping on special infused teas, each blend crafted to promote relaxation and tranquility. The effect was immediate. The group felt their tensions easing, replaced by a profound sense of calm and relaxation. Kesey leaned over to Ladarius with a puzzled expression. The unusual calmness had her questioning their experience. Are we high? She whispered, her voice tinged with curiosity and a hint of amusement. Ladarius, feeling an unexpected lightness and a sense of detached ease himself, paused to consider her question. He looked around, taking in the peaceful setting and their unusually relaxed friends, then back at Kesey. "I think so," he admitted with a hint of surprise. "Damn." Michelle found herself slipping into a state of profound relaxation. Her usual guard began to lower, and she started to speak with less restraint than usual. "You know," Michelle began, her voice soft but carrying in the quiet room, "after what happened at the club, I've been feeling—" Her words started to drift towards dangerous territory, hinting at the secrets they were all keeping. Tara, quick to recognize the potential slip, leaned in and gently touched Michelle's mouth to close it. "Hey, let's focus on this peaceful moment, right?" Tara interjected, her tone light but firm, effectively steering Michelle away from saying too much. With a sudden intensity, Alex blurted out, "I want some cookies. Why am I so hungry all of a sudden?" The group, taken aback by Alex's sudden outburst, turned to him, puzzled expressions on their faces. Before anyone could respond, Emmanuel, with a hint of realization dawning on him, said, "Hey guys, are we high?" The question seemed to trigger something in Olivia, who couldn't longer contain herself. Her laughter filled the room, breaking the last remnants of tension and confusion. The group returned to the hotel, moving through the bustling streets with a sense of unity and a slightly lighter heart. The journey back was quiet, each person lost in their thoughts, reflecting on the day's events and the soothing ritual they had just shared. The following day, Antariel awoke to find a note left for her, its message brief but filled with concern. "I'm at the hospital with my brother. Didn't want to wake you. See you soon." The handwriting was unmistakably Mario's. Determined to offer comfort, Antariel quickly sent a message to the rest of the group, informing them of her plan to visit the hospital and bring Jason some food. An hour later, they assembled in the hotel lobby, a sense of camaraderie binding them as they prepared to leave. Then Kim, looking around at the assembled group, voiced a concern that had been on everyone's mind. "Has anybody heard from Chris?" Tara responded, her expression a mixture of worry and confusion. "I knocked on his door earlier, but there was no answer." The group quickly decided on a place for lunch. Once the food was securely in hand, they made their way to the hospital. Upon arriving at Jason's room, they were greeted by the sight of him awake, a tired but genuine smile spreading across his face at the sight of his friends. As they unpacked the food, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The presence of loved ones and the promise of a meal shared in good company brought a sense of normalcy and comfort to the space. For Jason, the sight of his friends gathered around him, the familiar flavors of a well-loved meal, was a reminder of the world waiting for him beyond the hospital walls, filled with support, care, and the unwavering presence of those he held dear. As the group settled into the warmth of their reunion and the laughter that came with shared stories and comfort food, a nurse entered the room to check on Jason. After a brief update on his condition and ensuring everything was in order, the nurse turned to Mario with a smile. "Your brother's a great man," she commented. "He told me how he saved a group of kids from a burning building a few years back. He's a great guy." As the nurse then left the room, the whole group laughed because they knew Jason's penchant for embellishing stories, especially when he found an eager audience. As the laughter began to subside, the sudden ring of Mario's watch pierced the light-hearted atmosphere. Glancing down, he saw the caller ID displaying his daughter's name. Quickly, he motioned for quiet, the room's energy shifting from joy to anticipation. "Hey, Munchkin, you're on speakerphone because I broke my phone. What's up?" Mario's voice was gentle, starkly contrasting to the laughter that had filled the room moments before. His daughter's voice came through clear and laced with concern. "Dad, Mom has been in the hospital for about a week," she began, the weight of her words immediately silencing the room further. "The nurse said she has selective amnesia. This lady from the church recognized her and called Grandma. We're on our way up there to see her now." The gravity of the situation settled heavily on everyone, but Antariel, Tara, and Michelle felt it most acutely. The color drained from their faces as they sat in stunned silence. Without uttering a sound, their lips moved in unison, forming the words, "What the fuck?" Well, what an explosive chapter that was. You've just listened to another twist in the dark tale of We Hit. If your heart's racing and you're craving more, you know what to do. Smash that like button and hit subscribe. Things are about to get even bloodier, more deceitful, and thrilling. So stay with us and brace yourselves for the next chapter.
Wow.